Hello, good evening. Welcome to Women Work Your Faith. My name is Sylvia Johnson, and today I am reviewing the Sunday School Lesson for Sunday, December the 14th. The title for December the 14th Sunday School Lesson is Acceptable Offerings. Our Bible basis comes from Leviticus, the 22nd chapter, the 17th through the 25th verse, and then the 31st through the 33rd verses. The Bible truth is God's people are to give obedience to him. The memory verse, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And that is Romans, the 12th chapter, the first verse. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later because it's not in the Bible basis. Next, our lesson aim. By the end of the lesson, we will review what Leviticus says about God's requirement for acceptable sacrifices. Examine the connection between obedience to God and sacrificial giving of self and possessions, and pledge to make a self-sacrifice to God. So, thank you again for joining me. I'm going to move my big ugly cup because I'm trying to drink enough water. Thank you for joining me for today's Sunday School lesson. This is our second lesson in the new quarter, which is Sacred Gifts and Holy Offerings. And we are here in the book of Leviticus. And we're going to go over some things. It's a short text-wise lesson, but I think it prompts some pretty in-depth discussion. So I'm hoping to do that succinctly. Because I have a graduation to go to. So I also want to say, please congratulate my cousin who is graduating this evening. She was born when I was 17. Tear. And she is graduating today with her master's in toxicology and pharmacology. So congrats to her. Please say a prayer for her success, for her life, for salvation, all the good that God has to offer for her. So my plan is to roll succinctly through this and to touch on quite a few points. So we're in the book of Leviticus, which is in the Old Testament, and we're going to talk about some things such as trusting God to provide the perfect sacrifice. And an analogy for that is how God provided Jesus and what those sacrifices are and what they require. And Jesus was without sin, untainted in any way, no blemishes, no marring of the world, right? And then us as believers and his children learning to give God what is right and not what's left. And there's a deacon in our church who says that during offering time before he prays. We want to give God what's right and not what's left. And then the only thing that that was accepted that was broken was us. And we're going to talk about how Jesus fixed that, right? And then some things to remember about the book of Leviticus. So it's in reference to the Levites, right? Which were the sons, which was one of the sons of Abraham, Israel. He was a descendant of Abraham, but he was one of the sons of Israel. And that is where the priestly family was. And the sons of Aaron came through them. And so they facilitated worship and managed and took care and ministered in the temple or the tabernacle at this time. They're the ones who monitored for appropriate sacrifices and made the sacrifices and presented them, were able to go into the holiest of holies. And so that is what we are looking at. This book is an introduction for a people in the wilderness about what holiness and sanctification was about, and learning what was clean and acceptable to God. So we're going to hit all of that today. If you have any questions about the book of Leviticus, about sacrifices, I did scan a picture, unfortunately, because I'm not pre-recording, I won't edit it, but I will post it on the page so you all can see that. But if you have any questions about the book of Leviticus or sacrifices, please, by all means, put them in the comments. It was challenging the first time, the second time, maybe the third time I read through this book, right? Because this is not in its natural text the way we live today, and we don't necessarily, without the help of the Spirit, understand how to translate that into how we live today and what God is speaking above and beyond the letter of the law, right? And so I'm intrigued, like, let me know your questions or your thoughts. People have an issue a lot of times with the book of Leviticus. They don't like things they see in the book of Leviticus. So let's chat, okay? Now, without further ado, let's get into the lesson. So we are in Leviticus, the 22nd chapter, and we are starting at the 17th verse. And it says here, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons and unto all the children of Israel, and say unto them, whatsoever he be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers in Israel, that will offer his oblation for all his vows, and for all his freewill offerings, which they will offer unto the Lord for a burnt offering. You shall offer at your own will a male without blemish of the beeves, of the sheep, or of the goats." That's a mouthful. So God is giving Moses what the priestly role is and what is required as a sacrifice. The sacrifices were done at the tabernacle by the priest and the person who was offering, right? They were supposed to lay their hands as if they were transmitting or transferring their sins or their offenses onto this perfect creature that God had deemed acceptable for the sacrifice. But here we're talking about free will offerings. So you had your offerings that were to help atone for sin, seeking forgiveness to get back in right relationship with God. You had your sin offering, your trespass offering, intentional and unintentional offenses, right? But then you had a free will offering, peace offerings, Thanksgiving, an offering of Thanksgiving, an offering that you gave when you made a vow or a promise to God, right? Things that you did to show gratitude for being delivered from illness or lack of resources, to give thanks and to fellowship with God and to worship Him. You could do that. And if you were not of the children of Israel, you could also make a free will offering. So we talked a lot about, in the last quarter, people who were not of Israel, who were believers, the Gentiles, right? They believed in the God. They didn't know Him in His fullness, but they believed in Him. So someone who was not of the body could still offer to God. And what God is saying here to Moses is how this is done. And He's saying whoever they are who wants to give this free will offering, something that you are giving of your free will, right? You're not commanded to do this every day or every month or once a year or every year of Jubilee. This is an offering you give freely. This is what I will accept here. And it says, a male without blemish of the beeves or the sheep or the goats. So in this voluntary act of worship, you could give a male oxen, you could give a sheep, or you could give a goat. And so if you want to learn more about these free will offerings, you can go to Leviticus 3. And as usual, I will write all of the reference scriptures in the description box. And so you can go to Leviticus 3, and it tells them what they should offer. And it also specifies that it is without blemish, right? And how they should offer it and what would happen to it and how the priest would sprinkle the blood. If you go to, I don't want to read all of that, but if you go to Leviticus 7, it tells again, so here is the peace offering at Leviticus 7 and 11. And it tells the difference between the sin offering, the trespass offering, and the peace offering. And in 11 it says, and this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he shall offer unto the Lord. If he offer it for a thanksgiving, then he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes mingled with oil and unleavened wafers, anointed with oil, and cakes mingled with oil, of fine flour fried. Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering leavened bread with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offering. And of it he shall offer one out of the whole oblation for a heave offering unto the Lord, and it shall be the priests that sprinkle the blood of the peace offering. So God has given them clear instructions on one, what to bring with your sacrifice, right? What to bring with it. You bring the sacrifice, but you bring some other stuff too. And then how it should be handled, who would touch it, what they would do with each part, when it should be consumed, what should be done with what was remaining. Could you eat it the next day? Could you not eat it the next day? And so God was very clear in his instructions. And that's something that we need to think about, right? God lets you know what you were to bring, its purpose, and how it should be handled, and what was acceptable to him. And the interesting thing about it is, right, it all belongs to him. Like you're holding it for a time, right? That we're the stewards. But what you are sacrificing to him is already his. He created it. And so he gives us instructions on how to give it back to him and what we should be doing when we give it back to him, and in the way we should do it when we give it back to him. So in this, in Leviticus 22, in this act of worship, and I want to make sure that we understand that the free will offerings were a voluntary act of worship. This sacrifice was a male of either oxen, sheep, or goats, and it had no blemishes. And no blemish was about the appearance of the animal, what they could see. And the sacrifice was given to God, but it was shared between the priest and the person who made the offering. And they were participants or partakers in that. So it was a sacrifice made to God, but the fellowship between the priestly family and the person making the offering and God was what was demonstrated when they did that, because they all consumed it together. Moving on, we are going to Leviticus 22 and 20. It says, "But whatsoever hath a blemish, that shall ye not offer, for it shall not be acceptable for you. And whosoever offereth a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord, and accomplish his vow, or a free will offering in beeves or sheep, it shall be perfect to be accepted. There shall be no blemish therein." So he is enforcing the perfectness of this sacrifice. It will not be acceptable for you, meaning I will not receive that offering if it has a blemish. And if you're wanting to make a vow to God, a promise to him, like the Nazarite vow, right? Saying that I will live for him and study after him and not cut my hair, I won't consume any strong liquor, I will touch no unclean thing. You know, there were vows that demonstrated what you were committed to doing for God. The fulfillment of that vow would not be accepted if the sacrifice wasn't right. And if you wanted to be in fellowship with God and be in right relationship with God, you couldn't bring something against what he asked for. And, you have to remember, you're bringing peace and thanksgiving, but you have to sacrifice something that is of value, and we'll talk about that. The blemished animals were not things that he would receive. And so if we go to Malachi 1, you're all the way back to the end of the Old Testament. We're going to start in 1 and 6. It says, "A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts unto you, O priests that despise my name." And so God is really great about saying, kind of like Sophia in Golden Girls, picture this, right? Riddle me this, Batman. Let me throw this out and see if you can pick up what I'm putting down. A son honors his father. How do we honor our parents, right? We respect them and obey and follow their word. And it says the same that a servant his master, right? How do you honor your master? You do what they tell you to do. You serve them in the way you're supposed to serve. Now, remember, the Levites were taken by God. Okay, they were the tribe. They were the son of Israel that God took as his own to serve him. And so he uses this analogy for them because that family belonged to him. And it says, but if I'm your father and your master, where's my honor? And then it comes back and it says, "O priests that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised thy name?" You who hate, who defile, you who make my name unworthy sounding, right? And they're like, how do we do that? He says, "Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? In that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible. And if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts?" So he says, where have you dishonored me, right? And he says, you made my table. The table was where they offered the sacrifice, and then they laid the shewbread at the table as well inside the tabernacle. And you made it contemptible. You made it something despising, something to hate or to regard lowly. And you offered blind and lame animals in the sacrifice. Remember, he said they couldn't have a blemish. They had to be perfect. And we're going to talk about what he says and how he feels about it here. So in 22 of Leviticus, the 22nd chapter, he says, "Blind or broken or maimed or having a wind or scurvy or scabbed, ye shall not offer these unto the Lord, nor make an offering by fire of them upon the altar unto the Lord. Either a bullock or a lamb that hath part anything superfluous or lacking in his parts, that mayest thou offer for a freewill offering, but for a vow it shall not be accepted." So he describes the blemishes he's referring to, right? Again, it's about things you can see that are wrong with this animal. It can't be blind. It can't have open wounds, discharge, hemorrhaging, missing a limb. Okay, this animal has to be whole. It has to be healthy. It has to be formed correctly, with the exception of the freewill offering. It can have a limb that is extra long or short. This animal has to be right. And it's the outward appearance of the animal, right? And it should tell us that holiness, meaning the status or the sacredness of the being, and the sanctification shows. And how does it show? and I want to make sure that we understand this right, because sometimes we think we can make ourselves holy. The animal, and this is why it's such a good example to look at this. The animal doesn't make itself holy. It is its keeper that does it. If you have an animal, a pet, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't watch that thing, it'll get into something. It'll get hurt. It'll be choking on something. It'll fall off of something and break a leg. It'll run into something and get cut. It'll have ticks and parasites all over it, eating its skin up. Those of you who've had pets, you know, if you're not monitoring that creature, it's gonna die. It's just gonna die. Like everything in the world, it seems like it's out to get it, right? And so it's not the whole the animal, the sacrifice that makes itself holy, it's its keeper. When something is of value, you take care of it. You keep it clean, you protect it, you shelter it, you make sure it has all its provisions. And so this non-blemished thing was something that was of value, that was important and well cared for by the person who would offer it. Now, we typically do that for things we want to keep for ourselves. But what God is teaching us is to do it for something that you're going to give up. It takes a lot, and you can do it. I mean, you know, like you can go out and find a perfect animal somewhere. It will be hard. the best thing for you to do is to have one and take care of it and keep it perfect, right? And not let it get messed up. And so God is teaching us that one, holiness and sanctification shows, but it shows in the provision and the way that you set apart time, that you set apart the animal, that you involve yourself in its care and the stewardship of said thing. And we need to think about that for ourselves as well, right? And so all of us who say we are holy and sanctified, it is not us that keeps us. It is not us that has cleansed us, right? It is not us that has made us whole. We were done by the blood of Jesus because of the provision of the Father. I'm not in my own care. I'm under the care of my master. So think about that as we're looking at the fact that blemishes were not acceptable. The animal's not responsible. The sacrifice is not responsible for the blemishes. It's the person who makes the offering, right? And I'm going to be that person that asks you, who made the offering for your sins, right? Okay, we hear, we think about that. And then in the case of this being a free will offering, how does that occur now? Just be chewing on that, okay? So God is telling Moses, without any room for doubt, that these animals were special. Don't bring me no junk. So as we read in Malachi, when he told the priest, like, a son honors his father, the servant his master, where's my honor? You all were a set apart people. I took you for myself. And I gave you this duty to minister and serve before me. And you made my table contemptible. You defile my sacrifice. What is happening? And he says, give it to your governor and see what he do. So take your mutilated, broken, diseased animal and offer it to a person that you serve, right? A human being on earth that you serve. See if they'll accept it. Why do you think you're going to give that to me? So I hope I'm making clear how strongly God felt about the wholeness of what was brought to him. Now, if we go on to Leviticus 22 and 24, it says, turn my page. Ye shall not offer unto the Lord that which is bruised, crushed, or broken, or cut. Neither shall ye make any offering thereof in your land. Neither from a stranger's hand shall ye offer the bread of your God of any of these, because their corruption is in them, and blemishes be in them. They shall not be accepted for you. So, when he says an animal that is bruised or crushed or broken, castrated. You see that a lot with animals. When they're breeding, they will castrate the males, right, to keep them in check, to keep them under control, keep them from abusing or jumping on the younger ones, to keep them from jumping on the females all the time. And when God says, no, no, I don't want those. Those are not acceptable. I will not receive those sacrifices. You shouldn't do it when you're in your land. And the people or the strangers, if you get an animal like that from them, I don't want it. Again, the wholeness of the sacrifice was very important. So continuing on, we are going to skip a couple of verses. It talks about how to separate, how long you keep an animal when it's born, when you can separate it from its mother, and when it's acceptable for a sacrifice. If we go to the 31st verse of the 22nd chapter, it says, therefore shall ye keep my commandments and do them. I am the Lord. Neither shall ye profane my holy name, but I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. I am the Lord which hallow you, that brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord. So a couple of things to catch in this summation of this section of the law. So from here, because of all I've said, you need to keep my commandments. A commandment, it's legal, it's binding, it is constituted or implemented by an authority that has the rule over its subordinates. something that someone who has authority over you instructed you to do for certain. Then it says, I am the Lord. If you didn't know, he's the authority, okay? And you are the subordinate. Neither shall you profane. To profane something means, in this case, he doesn't want you to profane his name, his holy name. His name is sacred. And remember when the children of Israel agreed to the covenant, they agreed to be his representation in the earth. To profane his name is to represent him as less than holy, to bring it down in sacredness. And God is set above everything else. So when you do things that are false or unclean or, for lack of a better word, unholy, right? You have brought him down or lowered his image. And that was not what they were supposed to do. That's why he told them not to carry his name in vain. Don't take on your name as the children of God, to not fulfill it and carry it out as it's intended to be done. And so he reminds them again, don't profane my name by doing these unholy things. And he says, I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. I will be sacred among you. There's a way that you should reverence me. There is a healthy fear, and the meaning fear as in reverence, regard to how I come before God. I don't just come traipsing into the holies of holies anyway, right? I don't just present myself to him like, he my buddy, we cool. He got it. He understand. He'll take that. No, I need to be reverenced by you all. And it says, I am the Lord which hallow you. I am what makes you holy. I am what brought you out of Egypt and set you apart for a sacred purpose. And I did it, and I am your God. I am the one who is eternally existent. I am the God that is with you. So you need to obey what I'm teaching and reverence me as you should. And remember that I am what sets you apart. Now, if we finished here, we could just do what oftentimes people do when it comes to, the Bible, the law, church, the thou shalt not, bet not, can't nots, right? We just get the rules and we go on from there. And a lot of people will look at this and say, we don't live like that now. We don't have to follow the law. This isn't relevant to us. But it is. Because remember, God was teaching a people who did not know him, who did not know holiness, who did not know righteousness, the foundations of that and how to be that in the earth. And it's the same way with lots of us, right? And that is part of why I'm deducing this because nobody asked me when they made it. That is part of why the memory verse is from Romans. And if we go to Romans 10, I'm going to take you through this. And this is what I got from here. And I'm all down for Romans because I'm Team Paul. So the memories verse is Romans 12:1. But the reason why I said go to Romans 10 is because in order to understand the context of what Paul is saying in 12:1, you have to, by all means read the whole book of Romans, but you have to go back a little bit and understand what he's doing in this section. So in Romans 10:1-2, he writes and says, Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. We'll go on to 3. For they being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. What's he saying? Remember in the last quarter, we studied Paul in the book of Acts and how he was constantly going from place to place to place. And if he could find a synagogue, he stopped there first. And he would bear witness to them through the scriptures about the good news of Jesus Christ and what he did with the remission of sin, and that he was the Christ that they were waiting for, that he was the Son of God, born of a woman, a virgin, who had died and rose again and was sitting at the right hand of the Father. And most of the time, they did not receive him. And so he is writing here to a Gentile population that his desire is for his people of Israel to be saved, right? But they have not received it. They are pursuing their own righteousness through the law, right? They are still following the law and sacrificing as they understand it according to the law, and have not received the righteousness of God. And so that righteousness, and that's a word that people get tripped up on, is what is right before God, what is right according to his will, and what puts you in right standing with him. And all of that is important, and it's relevant to this sacrificial system that God was teaching them in the Old Testament, because he's showing them the difference between clean and unclean, holy and unholy, and how to leave what you've learned in the world and come and be hallowed by him and set apart by him. And so what happens here as Paul is discussing this, as we head on over to Romans 12:1, right? He's teaching the readers, now wait a minute, if the children of Israel are not doing it right, what purpose had they, right? If they don't receive what God has done, they must be all wrong. And so what he's showing is that through the children of Israel, God has revealed himself to the world and made himself known for the benefit of the Gentiles. That's us. Okay. And so that whole Old Testament system that we say we disregard and it's not important, it teaches us. It is the method through which Christ came into the world. And it was not just for the benefit of the children of Israel. Remember, the promise to Abraham was that through you, all the nations of the world would be blessed. I'm still on the sacrifices. Stay with me. And so here we are. Paul is making that explanation as he's talking about the justification through faith, and how when the children of Israel did not receive the good news, the Gentiles heard it and they received it. And through it, they have been blessed to receive the good news of Jesus Christ, the power of God through his Spirit, and the ability to be grafted into the family and the promise of Abraham, right? And to what end, though, right? Are the children of Israel thrown away? Are they no good? No. Because of their zeal and their jealousy for God, right? Now we are the witness that will bring others in, which is what brings us to Romans 12:1 as the witness, right? As the representation, as those of us who believe. Why do we need to understand the value of the sacrificial system? Because we are the sacrifice now. We are what's been hallowed. We are what's been set apart. We are what was valued. Remember, I said, I'm not in my own keeping. I'm under the keeping of my master. I was cleansed and set apart and made whole by my master. And to what end, right? To this end. In Romans 12:1, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. I'm going to read two. It's not in the Sunday school lesson, but we're going to go. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Remember, the free will offering was a voluntary worship. It was not an offering that was made to atone for sins. It was not an offering that was made to be forgiven of trespasses. This was an offering that you made in right relationship and fellowship with God. That is the only offering we make today. I come before him and I give myself. And remember, the animal was not responsible for the condition of it. An animal left up to its own devices was going to be blemished. It was going to be broken. It was going to be bruised. Something was going to happen to that animal. But because the keeper took care of it and set it apart and made it holy, that animal could be brought before God without blemish. Who did that for you? Who has made you whole? Who has set you apart? Through what means are you made holy? Okay? And because that, you can be brought before the Father. And what you offer in fellowship with him is you. You are the only acceptable sacrifice covered by the blood of Jesus, according to what he did on the cross. Okay? And then as that sacrifice, and this is why I said I'm going to read verse 2 in Romans 12. Be not conformed. So I've been made whole. I've been made perfect. Not because I am perfect, but because I'm covered in the blood, right? After I've been made right, I do not fashion myself after what is wrong. I do not modify what Christ has made good into something else. And so I can't be conformed to the world. However, I be transformed, meaning being brought to a higher physical and spiritual status. I am being made into something totally different. So I don't take on the things of the world. Instead, I allow myself to be shaped and to be molded and created into something that is a higher physical and spiritual status, i.e. the image of the Father. Okay? That's what the Bible teaches us, that we are made new and all things are of him, right? They're all of God. I am created to be his image and his likeness. And then it says, to what end am I doing, women? Transformed by what? The renewing of your mind. So my mind is remade. It's made new again. The way that I see things, the way that I think things, I'm not blind anymore. I'm not broken anymore. I don't stumble into the things that would cause me to have blemishes anymore. Okay, we done with that. And to what end? That ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So that I may prove, that I may discern and learn and reveal to others and show what is that good. And so good in this context in the New Testament means beneficial. In this scripture, it means beneficial, positive, right? Good in Genesis, when he creates everything, when he says this is good, that means this is whole. But here he's saying, what is that beneficial, that prosperous, that positive? And it says, and acceptable, what God is willing to receive, what is pleasing to him, and perfect, whole and complete will of God. Which, if you read 10 and 11, you would find that the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God is that we be his witnesses to the drawing of others. The children of Israel were taught what was holy and unholy, what was clean and unclean, to be a witness in the earth for others. And now those of us who believe, we now have learned what is clean and unclean, what is acceptable, what can be brought before him. And when people see me make myself the sacrifice, when people see me at the altar of thanksgiving, when people see me giving myself up to him, it is a witness to who he is. And through that, he is made known in the earth, that others can come to him. And so from there, others can be saved. And remember, I said earlier in the free will offering, God was in the offering, right? You gave the offering to God. The priest consumed part of the offering, and the person who made the offering was able to consume. Is the only one that they could actually participate in and eat some of. What does that mean? When I present myself as a living sacrifice, he lets me enjoy some of me. He lets me enjoy my walk in the park. He lets me live in a nice home. He lets me have a nice car or be healthy. He lets me enjoy the life that I gave him. So you don't have to think of making that free will sacrifice today as, oh, I got to give up my whole life. You know, when people think they get saved, oh, my life is over. I'm not going to be able to do anything. Everything is done now. No more fun. No, because the person who makes the offering can participate in the sacrifice. So I get to enjoy the benefit of making that sacrifice to God. So again, the free will offering is about fellowship. It's about being those who are in right relationship with him. At my church last year, we did a whole study in November about the word Thanksgiving. And I helped them understand the offering of Thanksgiving is you. It's you. And so we need to remember that. That's why I'm Team Paul, by the way. That's why Paul makes it clear to you, I beseech you, I am calling to you. Remember, his desire is that Israel be saved. I need you all to make yourself a sacrifice. I need everybody to lay down this sacrifice. And think about the people that you want to be saved. Think about the people who need to know God. They need to see you make the sacrifice, okay? So let us think about that now in the context. God, I think I said this last week. God did things in the law, and Paul told us, it's a shadow, meaning it was an obscure vision. We couldn't really see it clearly. We didn't understand what was going on. But now we see it. Now we understand. And I'm going to read it just because I'm here. In Romans 11:33, oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. For who hath known the mind of the Lord, or who hath been his counselor, or who hath first given to him, and it shall be recompensed unto him again. For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. He knew what he was doing, y'all. So don't look at the law, especially things like this, because I'm not telling you to go find sheep, goats, and oxes, okay? Oxens. You need to look at yourself. God knew what he was doing. He put into context in the way that they understood, a way for them to learn what it meant to be holy, to represent him and to minister unto him in the earth. He didn't need them animals, okay? His desire was us. He was working towards drawing us. And now us as believers need to work towards his will and do what is right so that others can come to him. The last point I want to say, our visit again, trusting God to provide the perfect sacrifice. So remember I said Jesus was the perfect sacrifice. He made the atonement, because you couldn't be in right relationship with God if you hadn't atoned for your sins. And we had nothing that was going to do that. He made the atonement so that it never had to be made again. He was the perfect sacrifice for that. And then because of what he did in providing that perfect sacrifice, I'm made whole. And I can now come before him. So in bringing the best, unblemished male of the whatevers, right? God made a way for the rest of us to come and to present ourselves to him. And so you don't have to be worried, because he demonstrated by doing it himself, giving up his best. We should not have to worry or fear in letting go of our best. And the most valuable thing that you can offer is yourself. Okay. And that's why we give God what's right, not what's left. Lesson aim. By the end of the lesson, we will review what Leviticus says about God's requirement for acceptable sacrifices. I think I did that. If I didn't, let me know. Examine the connection between obedience to God and sacrificial giving of self and possessions. Check. I think I did that. And then pledge to make a self-sacrifice to God. Only you can do that. So, thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you all understood. I hope I made it clear. As usual, I will put the scriptures that I referenced in the description. It might be a little later when I get back from the graduation. And I encourage you to study it, to look at it, to pray over it, to meditate on it with the Lord, and to really search it so that you can understand the value. I asked this in my Sunday school class last Sunday. Why do we study the Old Testament? So that you can see the value, so that you can learn, so that you understand what God was doing. And he yet doing it with us today. Thank you. If the Lord says the same, I will see you all next week in Sunday school. Be blessed.